The coffee shop buzzed with the usual Saturday morning chaos, espresso machines hissing, cups clattering, voices blending into a comfortable hum. Jennifer Cole stood behind the counter, her auburn hair pulled back in a messy bun, flour dusting her apron from the morning's batch of croissants. At 32, she had perfected the art of moving through life with quiet determination, her hazel eyes reflecting both exhaustion and an unshakable resolve that came from raising a 7-year-old daughter alone. Mom, look. Her daughter, Clara, sat at the corner table designated for homework and coloring, waving a drawing of what appeared to be a rainbow-colored unicorn riding a skateboard. Jennifer smiled, the kind of smile that made the long hours and aching feet worth every second. "It's beautiful, sweetheart," she called back, pouring a cappuccino with practiced precision. The bell above the door chimed, and 3 women walked in, regulars who came every Saturday like clockwork. Melissa, Brooke, and Amanda were neighborhood fixtures, always impeccably dressed, always carrying the latest designer handbags, always speaking just loud enough for everyone to hear their conversations about yacht clubs and charity galas. Jennifer had never fit into their world, and she knew it. She was the woman who served their overpriced lattes while they complained about their personal trainers being late or their housekeepers using the wrong fabric softener. "Jennifer, darling," Melissa cooed, her voice dripping with artificial sweetness as she approached the counter. "The usual, please. And make sure the foam is extra dry this time. Last week it was practically soup." "Of course," Jennifer replied, her customer service smile firmly in place. As she prepared their drinks, she couldn't help but overhear their conversation. Not that they made any effort to lower their voices. "Did you see Patricia's daughter got engaged?" Brooke said, scrolling through her phone. "That's the 3rd wedding this month. Meanwhile, I can't even get my son to commit to a dinner reservation." "Speaking of commitments," Amanda chimed in, her eyes sliding toward Jennifer with unmistakable mischief. "Some people never seem to find anyone, do they?" The comment hung in the air, sharp and pointed. Jennifer's hands stilled for just a moment before continuing their work. She'd learned long ago that responding only gave people like them more ammunition. "You know what we should do?" Melissa said suddenly, her voice rising with excitement. "We should set Jennifer up on a blind date." Jennifer's stomach dropped. She kept her eyes on the espresso machine, hoping they'd lose interest if she didn't react. "Oh my God, yes!" Brooke clapped her hands together. "It would be hilarious. I mean, when was the last time she even went on a date? She's always here, covered in coffee grounds and looking like she just rolled out of bed." "I know the perfect person," Amanda said, pulling out her phone with theatrical enthusiasm. "My husband's business associate. He's looking for someone uncomplicated. You know, someone who won't demand too much." Jennifer placed their drinks on the counter with slightly more force than necessary. "Your drinks are ready." "Oh, don't be shy." Melissa grabbed her cappuccino, her perfectly manicured nails clicking against the cup. "We're doing you a favor. When was the last time you did something for yourself? You're always working or taking care of that adorable little girl. You deserve a night out." "I appreciate the thought, but I'm not interested," Jennifer said firmly, already turning to help the next customer. "We'll take care of everything," Brooke insisted, ignoring her protest entirely. "Next Friday night. We'll even pay for a babysitter. Consider it our charitable contribution for the month." The 3 women dissolved into giggles, clearly delighted with their plan. Jennifer felt her cheeks burn, but she held her composure. She'd dealt with worse than entitled women treating her life like their personal entertainment. That evening, after closing the shop and getting Clara settled with her homework, Jennifer's phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Friday, 7 p.m., the Rosewood Restaurant. Your date's name is Marcus. Wear something nice." Melissa Jennifer stared at the message, her thumb hovering over the delete button. The Rosewood was one of the most expensive restaurants in the city, the kind of place where a single appetizer cost more than her grocery budget for a week. This wasn't a genuine attempt to help her. It was a setup designed to humiliate her, to give them another story to laugh about over their Saturday lattes. But something stirred in Jennifer's chest. Not hope exactly, but a flicker of defiance. Maybe she should go. Not because she believed anything would come of it, but because she refused to be the punchline of their joke. She would show up, hold her head high, and prove to herself that she was stronger than their mockery. "Mom, are you okay?" Clara's voice broke through her thoughts. Her daughter stood in the doorway, clutching her favorite stuffed rabbit. her dark curls framing her worried face. "I'm fine, baby," Jennifer said, pulling Clara into a hug. "Just thinking about something silly." Is it about the mean ladies from the coffee shop?" Clara asked, with the unsettling perceptiveness of 7-year-olds everywhere. Jennifer laughed softly. "How did you know?" "They talk loud, and they're always saying weird things. Mrs. Patterson says people who talk like that are usually unhappy on the inside." Mrs. Patterson was their neighbor, a retired teacher who watched Clara occasionally, and had become something of a grandmother figure to them both. Her wisdom, filtered through Clara's innocent interpretation, never failed to surprise Jennifer. "Mrs. Patterson is a smart lady," Jennifer agreed, kissing the top of Clara's head. That night, after Clara fell asleep, Jennifer stood in front of her closet, staring at the limited options hanging there. She owned exactly 2 dresses that could be considered appropriate for a nice restaurant. One black dress she'd worn to a funeral 3 years ago, and one navy blue dress she'd bought on clearance for a job interview that never panned out. She pulled out the navy dress, holding it up against herself in the mirror. It was simple, modest, nothing like the designer outfits Melissa and her friends wore, but it was clean. It fit well, and it was hers. Friday arrived faster than Jennifer expected. She arranged for Mrs. Patterson to watch Clara, assuring her daughter repeatedly that she'd be home before bedtime. "You look pretty, Mom," Clara said, standing on her tiptoes to adjust Jennifer's necklace, a delicate silver chain with a small pendant her late mother had given her years ago. "Thank you, sweetheart. Be good for Mrs. Patterson, okay?" The Rosewood restaurant occupied the ground floor of one of the city's most prestigious buildings, its entrance marked by tasteful lighting and a doorman in a crisp uniform. Jennifer's anxiety spiked as she approached, acutely aware of every budget choice she'd made. The dress that was 2 seasons old, the shoes she'd resoled twice, the purse that wasn't a designer label. Inside, the restaurant was everything she'd imagined. Crystal chandeliers, white tablecloths, the soft murmur of wealth and privilege. The hostess, a young woman with a professional smile, checked her reservation. "Ms. Cole, your party is already here. Right this way." Jennifer followed her through the dining room, her heart pounding. She spotted Melissa, Brooke, and Amanda at a corner table, their phones out, barely concealing their anticipation. This was it. The moment they'd been waiting for, when she'd meet whoever they'd deemed worthy of being part of their cruel joke. But when the hostess stopped at a table near the window, Jennifer's breath caught in her throat. The man standing to greet her wasn't what she expected. He was tall, probably in his early 30s, with dark hair and striking blue eyes that held an intensity she hadn't anticipated. He wore a perfectly tailored suit that probably cost more than her car. But there was something in his expression, a guardedness, a hesitation, that seemed at odds with his polished appearance. "Jennifer?" he asked, his voice deep and surprisingly gentle. "Yes," she managed, suddenly aware that across the room, 3 phones were pointed in their direction, recording what they assumed would be her embarrassment. "I'm Christopher Bennett," he said, pulling out her chair. "It's nice to meet you." And in that moment, as she sat down across from a man who looked at her with what appeared to be genuine interest rather than mockery, Jennifer realized that nothing about this evening was going to go the way anyone expected. Christopher Bennett watched Jennifer settle into her chair, noting the slight tension in her shoulders, the way her fingers smoothed the napkin across her lap twice, a nervous gesture that struck him as endearing rather than off-putting. He'd agreed to this dinner under protest, worn down by his father's assistant who'd orchestrated the entire thing as some kind of networking opportunity. But looking at the woman across from him now, Christopher suspected there was more to this setup than he'd been told. "I have to confess something," Jennifer said suddenly, meeting his eyes with surprising directness. "I'm not entirely sure why I'm here. Some women who come into my coffee shop set this up, and I think it might be, well, I think it might be a joke at my expense." Christopher's eyebrows rose. Her honesty caught him off guard. Most people he met spent the first 30 minutes of any interaction trying to impress him once they learned who his father was. "A joke? I'm a single mother who works 60 hours a week serving overpriced lattes to people who treat me like I'm invisible," Jennifer explained, a slight bitterness creeping into her voice. They probably thought it would be hilarious to set me up with someone completely out of my league, take some photos, have a good laugh about it tomorrow. Christopher leaned back in his chair, processing this information. He glanced around the restaurant and spotted 3 women at a corner table, phones out, watching their table with barely concealed glee. Something hot and uncomfortable twisted in his chest. Anger, he realized, on behalf of this woman he'd just met. Well, he said slowly, a plan forming in his mind. What if we gave them something better to talk about? Jennifer's brow furrowed. What do you mean? I mean, what if instead of letting them have their joke, we actually had a nice evening, let them take their pictures, let them think whatever they want, but we'll know the truth, that we're 2 people having dinner, getting to know each other, and nobody's being laughed at. A smile tugged at the corners of Jennifer's mouth, the first genuine one since she'd arrived. You know, that's either very kind or very strange. Maybe both, Christopher admitted. But I'll be honest with you too, I wasn't exactly thrilled about being here tonight either. My father's been pushing me to be more socially available, as he puts it. This was supposed to be some business connection thing. So we're both here under false pretenses. That's oddly comforting, Jennifer said. And this time she did smile fully, transforming her face from pretty to genuinely beautiful. The waiter appeared, and Christopher ordered a bottle of wine, something expensive that he knew would make those women's phones come out again. But as he and Jennifer began to talk, he found himself forgetting about their audience entirely. She told him about Clara, her daughter, and the way she described the 7-year-old's personality, her curiosity, her kindness, her habit of asking impossible questions at bedtime, made Christopher lean forward, genuinely interested. Jennifer spoke about her coffee shop, how she'd worked there for 4 years, saving every penny she could toward eventually opening her own small bakery someday. It's probably stupid, she said, looking down at her plate. A pipe dream. But I love baking, and Clara loves helping me, and I think about having a place that's really ours, you know? It's not stupid at all, Christopher said firmly. Having a goal, working toward something, that's admirable. What about you? Jennifer asked. What do you do? Besides get set up on blind dates by pushy family members? Christopher hesitated. This was the moment where he usually had to decide how much to reveal, how to gauge whether someone was interested in him or his father's fortune. Robert Bennett was one of the wealthiest real estate developers in the country, and Christopher worked as the vice president of Bennett Development Corporation. Saying that out loud usually changed the entire dynamic of a conversation. I work in real estate, he said carefully. Development, mostly. It's complicated. Everything's complicated when you really look at it, Jennifer said. Take coffee, for instance. People think it's simple. Beans, water, heat. But there's an art to it. The temperature, the grind, the timing. My boss doesn't care about any of that. He just wants things cheap and fast, but I care. Does that make sense? It makes perfect sense, Christopher said, and realized he meant it. I think that's the difference between doing something and doing something well. My father built his company on that principle. Attention to detail, refusing to cut corners even when it costs more. Your father sounds like a good businessman. He is. He's also stubborn, demanding, and impossible to please, Christopher said with a rueful smile. But I respect him. Even when I want to strangle him for interfering in my personal life, Jennifer laughed, a real, unguarded sound that made several nearby diners glance over. I understand that feeling. My mother was like that before she passed. She meant well, but she had opinions about everything I did. I'm sorry, Christopher said softly. About your mother. Thank you. It's been 5 years, but I still find myself wanting to call her when something happens with Clara. She would have loved being a grandmother. Jennifer's eyes glistened slightly, but she blinked the tears back. Sorry, I don't usually get emotional with strangers. We're not strangers anymore, Christopher said. We're 2 people who got tricked into a dinner date and decided to make the best of it. As the evening progressed, Christopher found himself sharing things he rarely discussed, his frustration with being constantly compared to his father, his desire to do something meaningful with the company rather than just acquiring more properties. his complicated relationship with his younger sister who'd moved to Europe to escape the family pressure. Jennifer listened with an attentiveness that felt foreign to him. She asked questions that showed she was actually hearing what he said, not just waiting for her turn to talk. When their meals arrived, filet mignon for him, salmon for her, they barely noticed the food, so engrossed were they in conversation. "Can I ask you something?" Jennifer said, setting down her fork. "Why did you really agree to this dinner? You seem like someone who doesn't do things they don't want to do." Christopher considered the question. "Honestly, my father's assistant set it up, and I thought it would be another tedious networking thing. I almost canceled 3 times. But something made me show up anyway." "Fate?" Jennifer suggested with a slight smile. "Maybe. Or maybe just curiosity about what my father's assistant thought I needed." He paused, then added, "I'm glad I came." "Me too," Jennifer admitted. "Even if it was supposed to be a joke, even if those women are over there right now planning how to mock me on Monday morning, I'm glad I came." Christopher's jaw tightened at the mention of the women. He glanced over at their table and saw them still watching, still whispering. An idea formed in his mind, impulsive and completely unlike his usual calculated approach to everything. "Jennifer," he said, leaning forward, "I know this is going to sound crazy, but hear me out. What if we kept seeing each other, not because of them, not to prove anything, but because I genuinely enjoyed this evening, and I'd like to get to know you better?" Jennifer's eyes widened. "Christopher, I appreciate that, but you don't have to." "I'm not doing this out of pity," he interrupted gently. "I'm doing this because in the past 2 hours, I've had more genuine conversation than I've had in the past 2 months. You're smart, you're funny, you're honest, and you don't seem to care that I—" He stopped himself, realizing he still hadn't told her the full truth about his family. "That you what?" Jennifer prompted. Before Christopher could answer, his phone buzzed insistently on the table. He glanced at the screen and saw his father's name. With an apologetic look at Jennifer, he answered, "Dad, I'm in the middle of dinner." "I know exactly where you are," Robert Bennett's voice boomed through the phone. "I'm outside in the car. I need you to come out here right now. We have a situation with the Riverside project." "Can it wait until tomorrow?" "No, it cannot. 5 minutes, Christopher. Don't make me come in there." Christopher ended the call and looked at Jennifer with genuine regret. "I'm so sorry. My father, he's outside and apparently there's some kind of emergency with one of our projects." "It's okay," Jennifer said, though her expression suggested disappointment. "I should probably get home to Clara anyway." "Can I get your number?" Christopher asked, pulling out his phone. "I meant what I said. I'd like to see you again." Jennifer hesitated for just a moment before reciting her number. As Christopher saved it, he noticed the 3 women at the corner table had their phones out again, capturing this moment. He stood, helped Jennifer with her chair, and on impulse, took her hand. "Thank you for tonight, for being real." "Thank you for not being part of the joke," Jennifer replied softly. As Christopher walked her to the entrance, he saw his father's black Mercedes idling outside. Through the window, he could make out Robert Bennett's imposing figure in the back seat. Christopher turned back to Jennifer one more time. "I'll call you tomorrow," he promised. "I'll answer," she said, smiling despite the awkward ending to their evening. Christopher watched her get into a cab before heading to his father's car, his mind already racing with thoughts of when he could see her again. He slid into the back seat, preparing for whatever business crisis had interrupted his evening. But the look on his father's face wasn't one of urgency or stress. It was calculating, almost amused. "So," Robert Bennett said, his voice measured, "you want to tell me about the woman you were just having dinner with?" And Christopher realized, with dawning comprehension, that his father had been behind this setup all along. Christopher stared at his father, the pieces clicking into place with uncomfortable clarity. "You set this up. This whole thing. It wasn't your assistant acting independently. It was you." Robert Bennett's expression remained neutral, but there was a glimmer of satisfaction in his eyes. "I've been watching you for months, Christopher. You work 80 hours a week, you attend every board meeting, you review every contract, but you don't live. You go home to that sterile apartment, you eat takeout in front of your laptop, and you pretend that's enough. So you decided to manipulate me into a blind date?" Christopher's voice rose slightly, anger simmering beneath his controlled exterior. "I decided to give you an opportunity, Robert corrected. Marcus, the business associate who was supposed to be your date's companion, he canceled last minute when his wife found out about the arrangement. Those women who set up Jennifer thought they were being clever, humiliating the coffee shop girl. I simply redirected their cruelty into something potentially meaningful. Christopher's hands clenched into fists. You used her. You used both of us. I created a situation, Robert said calmly. What you do with it is entirely up to you. But I saw how you looked at her through that window. I saw you smile, genuinely smile, for the first time in years. So tell me I was wrong to interfere. Christopher wanted to argue, wanted to rage against his father's perpetual manipulation of his life. But the truth was, he couldn't. Because dinner with Jennifer had been the most authentic connection he'd experienced in longer than he cared to admit. She's a single mother working in a coffee shop, Christopher said quietly. She has a 7-year-old daughter. She's barely keeping her head above water financially. And you want me to what? Sweep into her life with all our family's complications and pressure? I want you to be happy, Robert said. And for once, his voice carried genuine emotion. Your mother, before she died, she made me promise I wouldn't let you become like me. All business, no joy. She saw it happening even then, when you were 25 and already working yourself to exhaustion. The mention of his mother hit Christopher like a physical blow. Margaret Bennett had passed away 6 years ago, and her loss still felt raw on difficult days. Don't use Mom to justify this, Christopher said. But the anger had drained from his voice, replaced by exhaustion. I'm not justifying anything. I'm telling you why I did it. And I'm telling you that if you let this woman slip away because you're afraid, or because you think she doesn't fit into our world, you'll regret it. Robert leaned forward. Sometimes the best things in life come from the most unexpected places. Christopher rode home in silence after his father dropped him off, his mind replaying every moment of the evening. Jennifer's laugh, the way she'd been honest about the setup being a potential joke, her dreams of owning a bakery, the love in her voice when she talked about Clara. He pulled out his phone and looked at her number, his thumb hovering over the call button. It was too late to call tonight, but tomorrow. Tomorrow he would figure out what came next. The next morning, Jennifer woke to Clara bouncing on her bed. Mom, wake up! Mrs. Patterson wants to know everything about your date. Jennifer groaned, pulling a pillow over her face. Tell Mrs. Patterson it's too early for interrogations. She made pancakes, Clara said, as if this explained everything. 15 minutes later, Jennifer found herself sitting at Mrs. Patterson's kitchen table, a stack of blueberry pancakes in front of her, while the elderly woman watched her with keen eyes. Well? Mrs. Patterson prompted. Don't keep an old woman in suspense. It was unexpected, Jennifer admitted. He was nice. Really nice, actually. We talked for 2 hours and it didn't feel forced or awkward. Well, except at the end when his father called and he had to leave suddenly. His father? What does he do, this mystery man of yours? I don't exactly know. He said real estate development, but he was kind of vague about it. Jennifer frowned, remembering that moment. I got the sense there was more to it, but I didn't want to pry. And are you going to see him again? He said he'd call today, Jennifer said, trying to keep the hope out of her voice. She'd been hurt before, had learned not to invest too much in promises made in the moment. Her phone buzzed on the table, an unknown number, but somehow she knew. Hello? Jennifer? It's Christopher, from last night. I hope I'm not calling too early. No, not at all. I'm just having breakfast with my neighbor. Good. I wanted to apologize again for how the evening ended. My father can be intense. It's okay. Emergencies happen. Jennifer walked into Mrs. Patterson's living room for privacy, aware of both the elderly woman and Clara trying to eavesdrop. I had a really nice time, though, before the emergency. So did I. Which is why I'm calling. I know this might seem fast, but I'd like to see you again, maybe somewhere less formal, and I'd like to meet Clara, if you're comfortable with that. Jennifer's heart skipped. Most men ran at the mention of her daughter. The few dates she'd attempted over the years had ended quickly, once they realized she was a package deal. You want to meet my daughter? You talked about her for half an hour last night," Christopher said warmly. "She sounds amazing. I thought maybe we could do something she'd enjoy. The zoo, maybe? Or the children's museum?" "The zoo," Jennifer said, smiling despite herself. "She loves the zoo. She talks about becoming a veterinarian at least once a week. Saturday? I can pick you both up around 10. We can meet you there," Jennifer said quickly. She wasn't ready to give him her address. Wasn't ready for that level of vulnerability. "Fair enough," Christopher agreed without hesitation. "Text me when you get there and I'll find you." After they hung up, Jennifer returned to the kitchen to find Mrs. Patterson and Clara wearing matching grins. "So?" Clara demanded. "Are we going somewhere with your date?" "We're going to the zoo on Saturday," Jennifer confirmed. "But Clara, I need you to understand. We're just getting to know each other. It might not turn into anything serious." "Mom," Clara said with the exaggerated patience of a child explaining something obvious to an adult. "He wants to go to the zoo. That means he's serious." Monday morning at the coffee shop, Jennifer braced herself for the arrival of Melissa, Brooke, and Amanda. They showed up right on schedule, but their usual swagger seemed slightly subdued. "Well, well," Melissa said, approaching the counter. "We saw the pictures. Quite the romantic dinner you had." "The gentleman seemed very attentive," Brooke added, her tone carrying a note of confusion, as if the evening hadn't gone according to their plan. "He was lovely," Jennifer said simply, refusing to give them more than that. "Did he mention what he does?" Amanda asked, trying to sound casual but failing. "Real estate," Jennifer replied, preparing their usual orders without being asked. The three women exchanged glances. "Real estate," Melissa repeated slowly. "Did he mention which company?" "Not specifically. Why?" Another exchange of looks, more significant this time. "No reason," Brooke said quickly. "We were just curious." They took their drinks and retreated to their corner table, their whispered conversation more animated than usual. Jennifer tried to ignore them, but something in their reaction nagged at her. What weren't they telling her? Saturday arrived with Clara so excited she could barely sit still through breakfast. Jennifer had spent the previous evening second-guessing her outfit choices, finally settling on jeans, a comfortable sweater, and sneakers. Practical for walking around the zoo, nothing too fancy that would make Christopher think she was trying too hard. At the zoo entrance, Christopher was waiting, and Jennifer's breath caught slightly. In casual clothes, dark jeans and a navy Henley, he looked younger, more approachable than he had in his suit. "You must be Clara," Christopher said, crouching down to her level. "Your mom told me you want to be a veterinarian." Clara nodded enthusiastically. "I want to help all the animals, especially the ones that are hurt." "That's a wonderful goal," Christopher said seriously. "What's your favorite animal?" "Red pandas. They're like regular pandas, but smaller and cuter, and they live in trees." Christopher laughed. "Well, I happen to know this zoo just got a new red panda exhibit." "Should we start there?" Clara grabbed his hand without hesitation, already pulling him toward the entrance. Jennifer followed, her heart doing something complicated in her chest at the sight of her daughter so immediately comfortable with this man. The morning unfolded like something from a dream Jennifer hadn't dared to have. Christopher was patient with Clara's endless questions, buying her cotton candy even though Jennifer protested about sugar before lunch, taking selfies of the three of them in front of various exhibits. He didn't check his phone constantly or seem bored. He seemed genuinely present, genuinely happy. During lunch at the zoo cafe, while Clara was distracted by the playground visible through the window, Christopher reached across the table and took Jennifer's hand. "I need to tell you something," he said. "I wasn't completely honest about what I do." Jennifer's stomach tightened. Here it came. The revelation that would explain why those women at the coffee shop had reacted so strangely, the truth that would probably end whatever was beginning between them. "My last name is Bennett," Christopher continued. "My father is Robert Bennett, Bennett Development Corporation." The name meant nothing to Jennifer for a moment, and then it clicked. Bennett Development owned half the skyscrapers in the city, had just completed a massive luxury residential project on the waterfront, was regularly featured in business news. "Oh," Jennifer said softly. "Oh. I should have told you at dinner, but I wanted..." I needed to know if you'd like me without that information coloring everything. Christopher's blue eyes searched her face anxiously. Does this change things? Jennifer looked at Clara on the playground, then back at Christopher. Are you the same person who spent 20 minutes this morning explaining to my daughter why flamingos are pink? Yes. Are you the same person who laughed when that monkey stole my map? Guilty. Then no, Jennifer said firmly. It doesn't change things. Your money doesn't make you a different person than who you've shown me you are. Christopher's relief was visible. I was afraid you'd think I'd been deceiving you. You were protecting yourself, Jennifer said. I understand that. People treat you differently when they know, don't they? Always. Well, I'm still going to expect you to pay for lunch, Jennifer teased, since apparently you can afford it. Christopher laughed, the tension breaking. Deal. But, as they left the zoo that afternoon, Clara holding both their hands between them, Jennifer couldn't shake a growing unease. Because if Christopher's father was Robert Bennett, then his interference in their first meeting suddenly carried a lot more weight. And the question that nagged at her as Christopher kissed her cheek goodbye was simple and terrifying. Was any of this real? Or was she just another project for a billionaire family with too much power and not enough to do? The question haunted Jennifer through the following week. Christopher called every evening, their conversations flowing easily from Clara's day at school to his frustrations with a difficult project at work. He sent flowers to the coffee shop on Wednesday. A simple bouquet of daisies, not the ostentatious roses she half expected from someone with his resources. On Thursday, he showed up at closing time with pizza and helped her clean the espresso machines while Clara did homework at the corner table. But doubt gnawed at Jennifer's confidence. She kept replaying his father's mysterious involvement, the calculated way Robert Bennett had orchestrated their meeting. What did a man like that want with someone like her? What did Christopher really want? On Friday evening, Christopher invited them both to dinner at his apartment. Jennifer almost declined, the invitation feeling like a step toward something she wasn't sure she was ready for. But Clara's excitement won out, and she found herself standing outside a gleaming high-rise building, the doorman greeting them by name before they'd even approached. Christopher's apartment occupied the entire top floor, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Modern furniture that probably cost more than Jennifer's annual salary, artwork she recognized from museum visits. But what caught her attention was the kitchen table, set with mismatched plates and colorful napkins clearly chosen for a 7-year-old's aesthetic. I wasn't sure what Clara would like, Christopher admitted, looking endearingly uncertain. So I got options. There's chicken tenders, mac and cheese, and vegetables cut into fun shapes. You made all this? Jennifer asked, surprised, with significant help from a cooking tutorial and 3 phone calls to my sister in Paris, Christopher confessed. I'm not much of a chef, but I wanted to try. Clara was already climbing onto a chair, eyeing the chicken tenders with approval. This is way better than Mom's cooking. Hey, Jennifer protested, but she was laughing. Dinner was chaotic and wonderful. Clara talking nonstop about her school play. Christopher listening with genuine interest. Jennifer feeling the walls around her heart beginning to crack. After they ate, Christopher pulled out a board game, and they played until Clara started yawning. Someone's getting sleepy, Jennifer observed, stroking her daughter's hair. Can we come back? Clara asked Christopher directly, her 7-year-old honesty cutting through any adult pretense. I like it here. I like you. Christopher's expression softened in a way that made Jennifer's breath catch. I'd really like that, Clara. You and your mom can come back whenever you want. After Jennifer tucked a drowsy Clara into Christopher's guest room, because the evening had run later than planned and Clara had school the next day, she returned to the living room to find Christopher standing by the windows, his shoulders tense. What's wrong? She asked. He turned to face her. I need to be completely honest with you about something. About why my father interfered, about what he knew that I didn't. Jennifer's stomach clenched. Okay. Those women at the coffee shop, Melissa, Brooke, and Amanda, their husbands all work with Bennett Development in various capacities. My father knew they were setting you up as some kind of cruel joke. He also knew Marcus was married and the whole thing was designed to humiliate you. Christopher's jaw tightened with anger. He swapped me in at the last minute. Not just to protect you. but because he'd been watching me self-destruct for years and thought maybe someone genuine would wake me up. So I was a project, Jennifer said quietly, the fear she'd been carrying crystallizing into words, a way to fix the broken billionaire's son. No, Christopher said forcefully, crossing the room to take her hands. Jennifer, listen to me. My father created the opportunity. Yes, but everything that's happened since, every conversation, every moment, every time I've looked at you and felt like maybe I could be someone better than I've been, that's real. That's not him. Not manipulation. That's me. Falling for you. Jennifer's eyes stung with tears. How do I know? How do I know this isn't just you proving something to your father, or worse? How do I know you won't wake up one day and realize I don't fit into your world? That I'm just the coffee shop girl who can barely make rent, who doesn't know which fork to use at fancy dinners, who, Christopher kissed her. Not tentatively, not as a question, but as an answer to every doubt she'd voiced. When he pulled back, his forehead rested against hers. You want to know how you know, he whispered. Because I've spent the last week and a half happier than I've been in years. Because when Clara took my hand at the zoo, I felt something I didn't know I was missing. Because you look at me and see Christopher, not Bennett Development Corporation. Because you called me out on my evasiveness about my work and demanded honesty. Because you're real, Jennifer. You're real in a world where everything else feels manufactured. I'm scared, Jennifer admitted. I'm scared this is too good to be true. I'm scared of what happens when your father decides I'm not good enough for you. I'm scared of Clara getting attached and then getting hurt. Then be scared with me, Christopher said. Because I'm terrified too. I'm terrified of messing this up, of not being what you and Clara need, of my world crushing what we're building. But I want to try anyway, if you'll let me. Jennifer kissed him this time, pouring every hope and fear into it. When they broke apart, both breathing heavily, she managed a shaky laugh. This is insane. We've known each other less than 2 weeks. Completely insane, Christopher agreed. And I don't care. The sound of footsteps made them spring apart. Clara stood in the doorway, rubbing her eyes. Mom? I can't sleep. The bed's too big. Jennifer moved to comfort her, but Christopher was faster. He scooped Clara up easily. How about we all watch a movie until you get sleepy? I have about 100 animated films queued up because I wasn't sure what you'd like. You have 100 movies just for me? Clara asked, already perking up. Well, I was hoping you'd visit a lot, Christopher admitted. An hour later, Clara was asleep between them on the massive sectional sofa, her head on Jennifer's lap, her feet tucked under Christopher's arm. Jennifer looked at this tableau, her daughter peaceful, this man who'd come into their lives so unexpectedly, now such an integral part of them, and felt something shift and settle in her chest. I want to try, she said softly. I want to try this, with you. Christopher's smile was worth every risk. 3 months later, Jennifer stood in Christopher's apartment again. But this time the view was different. Papers covered the dining table. Business plans, financial projections, lease agreements. Christopher sat across from her, reading through documents with the same intensity he brought to everything. The location is perfect, he said. 2 blocks from a university, walking distance to 3 office buildings, and the rent is reasonable for that neighborhood. Reasonable being a relative term when your boyfriend is a billionaire, Jennifer teased. Your boyfriend who is only advising, not funding, Christopher reminded her. This is your dream, Jennifer. I'm just helping you make it happen. The bakery had been Christopher's idea originally, or rather, his observation that Jennifer had been saving for years and was closer to her goal than she realized. He'd connected her with a small business advisor, helped her navigate the loan application process, and introduced her to a contractor who could transform the empty storefront into her vision. But he'd refused to simply buy it for her, understanding that she needed to earn this, to own it completely. Mom, look, Clara burst through the door, Robert Bennett following behind her with an indulgent smile. The unlikely friendship between the 7-year-old and the billionaire patriarch had surprised everyone, but Robert had declared Clara the only person in this family who tells it like it is, and Clara had informed him he needed to smile more because his grumpy face scared people. Grandpa Robert taught me how to read a stock ticker, Clara announced proudly. We're not calling him Grandpa, Jennifer said automatically, even though the term had somehow stuck over the past months. Why not? Robert asked mildly. I've been meaning to discuss that with you both, actually. Christopher looked up sharply. Dad, we talked about this. No interference. I'm not interfering. I'm clarifying family structure. Robert pulled out a chair and sat down with the air of a man used to being obeyed. Christopher, you're in love with this woman. Don't bother denying it. I've seen you together. Jennifer, you're in love with my son. Also obvious. Clara, you've already claimed me as your grandfather. Also fine by me. Dad, Christopher started. Let me finish. I made mistakes with your mother, Christopher. I worked too much. I missed too many moments. I'm not making those mistakes again. Jennifer, you're good for my son. You make him laugh. You make him think about something other than quarterly reports. And Clara makes me remember why any of this empire building matters in the first place. Robert's expression softened. I'm not asking you to get married tomorrow. I'm simply saying that from where I sit, this family just got bigger, and I'd like to be part of it properly. Jennifer felt tears prick her eyes. Mr. Bennett. Robert, please, or Grandpa Robert if you're under 4 feet tall. Robert, Jennifer amended with a watery laugh. When I walked into that restaurant 3 months ago, I thought I was the punchline of someone's joke. I never imagined. That's the thing about life, Robert said, standing and putting a hand on her shoulder. The best chapters are the ones you never see coming. 6 months after that, Jennifer's bakery opened to a line around the block. Christopher had arranged for a food critic to, coincidentally, stop by, but the glowing review was earned entirely on Jennifer's merit. Her croissants were described as transcendent, her sourdough, a religious experience. Clara helped behind the counter on weekends, carefully counting change and charming customers with her precocious intelligence. Christopher showed up every morning before work for coffee and whatever Jennifer had fresh from the oven, and sometimes, on quiet afternoons, Robert Bennett himself would sit in the corner with a newspaper and a scone, grunting approval at the steady stream of customers. The 3 women who'd started it all, Melissa, Brooke, and Amanda, came in one Saturday morning. Jennifer tensed, preparing for mockery or some new cruelty. Instead, Melissa approached the counter with something that might have been embarrassment on her face. We heard your bakery was good. We wanted to try it. Of course, Jennifer said professionally. What can I get you? As she prepared their order, Brooke spoke up. We also wanted to say, we're sorry. For that night. For treating you the way we did. It was petty and mean. Jennifer looked at them, really looked, and saw not the intimidating women who'd mocked her, but 3 people who'd been just as trapped in their own unhappiness as she'd once been. Thank you for saying that, Jennifer said simply. Your lattes are on the house. After they left, Christopher, who'd witnessed the exchange, wrapped his arms around her from behind. You're incredible, you know that. I'm learning, Jennifer admitted, leaning back against him. That evening, after closing the bakery and tucking Clara into bed, Jennifer found Christopher on her apartment's small balcony. They'd spent more time here lately, Christopher insisting he loved the authenticity of her modest 2-bedroom compared to his sterile penthouse. I've been thinking, Christopher said, pulling her into his arms, about the future, about us. Jennifer's heart started beating faster. Oh? I know it's only been 9 months. I know conventional wisdom says we should wait longer. But Jennifer, I wake up every morning thinking about you. I go to sleep every night grateful you took a chance on me. Clara calls me her bonus dad, and I've never been prouder of any title I've earned. He pulled back, and Jennifer realized he was holding a small velvet box. I'm not asking you to marry me tonight, Christopher said, opening it to reveal a simple, elegant ring. I'm asking if you'll think about it, about making this permanent, about letting me be Clara's bonus dad officially, about building a life together that's ours, not anyone else's design. Jennifer looked at the ring, then at the man holding it, then back toward the apartment where her daughter slept peacefully. A year ago, she'd been serving coffee to people who looked through her. 6 months ago, she'd walked into a restaurant expecting humiliation. Now she had a thriving business, a daughter who was flourishing, and a man who loved her not despite her struggles, but because of how those struggles had shaped her into someone worth knowing. Yes, Jennifer said. Not to think about it. Yes to all of it. Yes to making this permanent. Yes to the life we're building. Just yes. Christopher's kiss tasted like joy and promise, and the kind of happy ending Jennifer had stopped believing was possible. From inside the apartment, they heard Clara's voice, sleepy and content. Mom? Are you and Christopher kissing again? Because Mrs. Patterson says that means there might be a wedding, and I get to be a flower girl, and that's way better than being a veterinarian. They broke apart laughing, and Christopher called back. We'll discuss wedding details in the morning, Clara. Go back to sleep. Grandpa Robert already said I can have a pony at the reception. We are not having a pony at our wedding, Jennifer said firmly, though she was still laughing. We'll see, Christopher murmured, kissing her again. And Jennifer realized that this beautiful, chaotic, unexpected life was exactly what happiness looked like. Not perfect,